Hello and welcome to the Modern Homesteading Podcast. I'm your host, Harold Thornborough, joined by...
the other host, Rachel Jameson.
Yeah, we've never figured out a good way to do that.
No, it always feels weird and awkward.
It does. It always feels weird. We just got done doing our members pre-show for, I don't know, we was on there for a little while. That was kind of fun. I get to talk about all the things we're doing around our homesteads and personal things and recommendations and just all the stuff going on. And we both got quite a bit going on right now. So that was kind of fun to talk about with our members. So folks, if you ever want to get a little bit more of us and you want to hear that little extra, join either Patreon or our membership, and you can download that and listen to that. So we do appreciate those folks who are our members. Today we're going to talk about getting started with seed starting. Catchy title, right?
It's about that time of year.
Yeah, I've already got some things going. You already have a few things going. It's not too late though, by any means, to get a lot of stuff going. There's a couple things that like it really early, like onions, which is one of those things that you have to get started pretty early.
You can bypass that if you didn't get them in. You can buy.
Yeah, it's not even a big deal. Or you can just have them come in a little bit later. They can just you can pick them later. It's not a big deal, or not as big. You can pick them when they're a little smaller. It's just smaller onion. Still plenty of time for tomato, depending on where you're at. I mean, we're not even close maybe on tomatoes and peppers and things like that, but we'll talk a little bit more about the things that maybe you'll consider. But there's still a lot of time to get the stuff together, get your setup going, and start some seeds. So I thought today we would talk about that setup, what you might need. I wouldn't even say all these things are needs. I did it a long time without these things.
Yeah, I started with
this makes it easier though.
Yeah.
I mean, my old way of doing it was setting some trays on the kitchen table next to the window.
Yeah.
I mean, I did that for a long time. I'd get 4, 5, or 6 trays lined up on our large kitchen table right next. We have 3 windows in our kitchen, on south facing windows. And I just set those trays right along the kitchen table, right beside those windows. And you know what? That worked for a long time. I couldn't do a lot, but it certainly did the job, and I was able to get things started. And then when I got a greenhouse, I would get them started there. And on warm days, I would move it back and forth from the greenhouse to there to get a little bit more sun. And I mean, it was just a lot more moving and doing. But once I actually put together a seed starting shelving system, it's a lot better. It's a lot easier when everything's in its place. So
it is a lot easier. I don't have very good windows on my south side of my house. The only good window I have, which I've used in the past, was west facing, which is why I ended up starting to buy stuff. It just made it easier.
And I've done some seed starting shelves. I actually made some improvements to mine this year based on some of the things you were doing that's working out almost too well. I'll talk about that when we get to it. But yeah, that's, just things have been working out. I find one of the most expensive, or it can be one of the most expensive things on how you do it, things to get started, is good shelving. Shelving can be really expensive if you want some of those really nice shelves.
It's not good. I will tell you that. This little mini greenhouse that I have put a link in is the Walmart brand, Walmart way of getting started. It's the thrifty way, but the shelves certainly are not the most sturdy, but they work. And that's what I've used for several years.
I was looking at that. You put the link in the show notes, which folks, you'll be able to find those in the show notes if you want to see all these things we're going to talk about. There's a lot of links in the show notes today, so go and check out the links if you want to see what these things look like or what they are exactly, or if you want to buy them. I was looking at those little shelving system greenhouses that you have there, and I was looking at the dimensions. Now, can you put the trays, the 10 by 20 trays, like 2 of them together long ways, like in that way, or they stick out a little bit, don't they?
They do. And so how I do it, I can do it. But if you put so there's a plastic that comes with them, like it zips shut. If I used that, I don't think I would be able to zip it. But because I'm not using that, I'm able to do it. Because what
the shelves themselves hold them. Okay.
Because what I'm doing is I'm putting the emergency blankets around it.
The shelves that I'm using,
yeah,
I can't do that. I'm using those plastic shelves. You see them a lot for sale. I mean, I think I bought mine at Rural King. I've seen them at Walmart. They're pretty heavy duty. They're plastic, but they're really heavy. Like I don't know how many. They'll hold a few hundred pounds of weight total on these things, but they're plastic. They're a heavy plastic though. And they have like the bars that kind of pop in, then you pop the next shelf on, and you can build them as tall as you want. And I'm using a couple sets of those right now. The problem with those is when you put the trays in long ways, they actually stick out a couple inches each way. They're not very deep. They're not as deep as the ones that you have.
Well, these
They're
still stick
sturdier, I
out.
think, though.
I can put two trays on each shelf in the long way. But my biggest complaint about these shelves is um what's nice about them is they come apart. What's bad about them is they come apart. So you can, if you don't have a lot of space and you don't want to leave them up year round, you can take them apart, which is what I do, and put them away
Yeah.
back in the box. But when you have things on them, you have to be careful how you slide them around, or they're
Yeah.
gonna kind of come apart on you. And there's like this wire shelving. What I have done with those is I take wire every year and secure the
So it
shelves
can't come
so
off.
they can't come off. But
Yeah, it's a good idea.
it's a really thrifty way to do it. Ideally, what I would like to do is buy like those wire, you see the wire racks on Amazon that have wheels. To
Yeah.
me, I feel like that would be
I
a great shelving.
I have some of those kind of shelves. I have the 2 foot versions. They're not the 4 foot. They have like the ones that are 4 foot long that you can put like
Right.
two side by side long ways seed trays. Those are awesome. They're also really expensive. We're talking a couple $100 for like a
Exactly.
4 tier shelf, but they are. I mean, that's something you could use for decades
Exactly.
and
Yep.
very nice. I have some of those in the 2 foot version that I have in my aquaponics system in my greenhouse, and they're a lot cheaper, of course, because they're only 2 foot. And they work really well, and they're pretty solid. And they come apart pretty nice. I mean, the way they go together and come apart, they're really solid. But then you can also adjust the shelf heights and all that stuff
Right.
the same way. Um, yeah, I also would like to buy some of those at some point and do something a little more
Yeah,
permanent on my setup.
I would
Um,
too.
but it is expensive. Like I said, they're a couple $100 with the rollers and stuff that you're talking about. I
Mhm.
seen there, and there's a little over $200 for like a 4 tier shelf on that, and
Yeah, so I mean,
that
it's
could
an
add up pretty
investment.
fast. Yeah, it's an
Yeah,
investment that I haven't made yet either.
and of
So
course, like everything, when I bought these mini greenhouses, they were like $25, and
yeah,
now,
they're like 40 something now, I think. In
yeah,
the
I mean, but that's how everything's been over the last few
yeah,
years. It's gone up. So what I do with mine is I have I have two of them that I put next to each other.
hmm
I don't use the plastic that came with the greenhouse part. And then I put my 4 foot lights up
yeah,
over the two
four
of them
foot.
because they're only 2 feet wide, basically. So I have to have the two of them next to each other and make the 4 foot.
Oh, okay. So you just okay. I see what you're talking about now. You just run through the whole thing.
I run it through the whole
Okay,
thing. So if you bought just one of these, you would probably want to buy the 2 foot grow
lights. Yeah.
lights.
I have 2 foot grow lights
I have
because I've
4 foot
always set
ones.
my shelves up on the 2 foot shelves, so I always buy the 2 foot grow lights, and
Yeah,
then
I
just
would like to get some 2 foot pink ones. Right now, I have the white lights.
yeah, we can talk about that when we get to lights here in a few minutes.
But yeah,
What
but that's
grow
what I
lights
have is
do
the
work.
little mini. And then I bought, did I put the link? Yes, I did put the blankets. So what I bought, they're these thin blankets that you put in like an emergency bag in your car. I bought 10 of them and I tape them around it and it helps reflect the light back in. And it gives it a little bit of heat because my basement can get pretty cold. So I have those blankets.
Oh yeah, I put a link to those two, the ones I bought down in the heat
Yeah.
section. I put
So that's what
like, I'll
my
post my link.
shelf setup
Yeah,
is those little greenhouses with I don't know if they're Mylar, but they're the emergency blankets.
yeah. Let's talk a little bit
Yep.
more about those when we get down to the heat section, and as far as holding the heat
Yeah.
in and the light, also light and heat. We'll talk a little bit more about those because I want to tell you about that's the setup that I got from you that I
Yeah.
changed my mind that is working extremely well, and like it actually worked so well I had to like make some adjustments because it was like too good on the heat side. It was too
Oh,
much
yeah.
heat
Mine
generated in there.
actually, I didn't put
Um,
any of my heat mats on. I have a couple of
yeah,
lemon trees.
I have heat mats on timers, and it got too hot in there.
Oh dear. Yeah,
Yeah,
I have just with the lights and the blankets, I have a couple of lemon trees in mine right now and
you're really
it's
going.
quite warm in there. Yeah, I grew lemons from I bought lemons
Yeah,
for water and I thought, oh, I mean, come on, that's what all
fun little
homes, a lot of,
experiment.
I had to experiment and guess what?
Growing lemons
I
in
have lemon
Michigan.
trees
Look at
now.
you. That's awesome. I love it. I love it. Let's move on to containers. I mean, everybody's going to figure out their shelving
Ah,
situation, and it's just what you can afford. Do the best
yep,
you can
yep,
with what you can afford. If you got a place where you can build something permanently, yeah, maybe
yeah,
getting some pallet wood and pallets. And I mean, if you wanted to
exactly.
go into it, I mean, you could make it as cheap as you want. And if you had a place, you could do that. But just do what the best you can for shelving because
And
it's
if all you have
probably
is a window
Yeah,
sill,
the
then
potential is that that's some of the most expensive stuff you're going to deal with, even more so
yep.
than I mean, even LED grow lights have gotten more affordable than shelving, I
Oh, they're
think.
so, yeah, shelving has gotten really
Yeah,
expensive. The
it's
LED
really
grow
raised up in
lights
prices.
have gotten better and better, and the
Yeah, they keep
cost
getting
has come
cheaper. The
down.
shelves keep getting more
Yeah,
expensive. I don't know.
I know.
Crazy. But the next thing you're going to have is some containers of some sort
Hmm.
to put your seeds in, right? I mean,
Man, this
generally
is,
and traditionally you'd use the 10 by 20 trays, okay, that have the different cells.
yep,
Um, you can get all the different size cells. Now, in the past, I've always did I start off really small and then I have to do a lot of up potting. I'd use the
yep, that's what I
72s,
did too.
but now I've actually went with I'm starting with, if it's something that I'm not going to have to up pot that's going to be kind of small, I've been using the 50 because they're about double a little bit bigger than the 72s. So I don't feel like I have to, some of the stuff I don't have to up pot. Like if I'm growing like my brassicas and stuff, getting them started, they're only in there for like say 3 or so weeks.
Right, yeah.
They don't get that big. So they're fine in the 50 cell trays.
And
I
it
just
saves
leave
you
and I'll,
time to not have to up pot.
yeah, and I'll have to up pot. The downside is you don't get as many seeds started in an area, right?
Right, yes.
So, but if you up pot, you still got to keep them under the grow lights. They're still going to
I
take up more
know.
space then. So it's like you might as well just go with something a little bit bigger. They actually have bigger ones if that's even too small for you. But the 50 is the smallest I like to go with anymore as far as the cell trays, the 10, 20 cell trays. Now, what you want to do though is get the trays that those set down in that don't have the holes
Right.
to keep water because
Yes.
it's best to bottom water. We'll talk about watering here a little more
Hmm.
detail, but you'll need those trays to keep your water in to water your cells and where
And
your
I'll tell you right now, spending a little bit of extra money on the heavier duty ones.
I put a link in for the Bootstrap Farmer on
Yeah, those
Amazon.
ones are really heavy,
They're really
really,
heavy duty, but now they're an investment
they
also
are
because
an
they will last you
investment.
multiple
Yes.
years versus the cheap ones that'll last you one, maybe two if you're
Oh man,
lucky.
those super cheap ones are
Yeah,
horrible.
1 year is probably the best you're gonna get out of
I
them.
started buying the little bit more expensive one. Not that I want the
Yeah.
bootstrap ones, but I started buying the little bit more expensive ones, which I put a link for. It's still way better than
I
the cheap, flimsy,
I will
funky
say
ones.
shop around though. Now I've traditionally bought some from Bootstrap Farmer, but there are some other companies making the heavy duty ones now. I'm thinking that the guy that the what's his name Eric with I think his name's Eric with Epic Gardening. Can't remember his name now. Anyway, I believe that guy bought a company and they're doing the heavy duty ones now,
Oh, cool.
selling through Epic Gardening. And I think there's another company I ran across here a while back when I was looking for some seed trays that's doing some heavy duty ones. And it
Yeah.
might have even been cheaper than Bootstrap Farmer. I don't know. Just shop around. I put a link for the Bootstrap Farmer ones because it's what I have and they are solid. I mean, those things are heavy duty. I mean, they're
Yeah,
like,
I know somebody that has, I actually was able to put my hands on some,
yeah.
and they are definitely nice. Very nice.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
also
I don't
have
think you'll have to really buy them. I mean, what, every 10 years, maybe even
right.
longer that those would last.
Something a lot of people are going to that I haven't actually used are the silicone ones also.
I've seen
You've
those. I
seen
have,
those.
I've
And so you
seen
can
those
basically
on the
you can
computer.
push them out easier. I guess they last quite a bit longer.
Yeah, I was wondering.
So those might be an
That's
option
an
too. But
investment
I've not
too.
used them. But they're also an investment. They're a little more expensive. But
Yeah,
I haven't used those before, so I'm not going to say yay or nay for sure
yeah.
on those. Now something I've been running across a lot lately is the Red Solo Cup. Well, I've always used Red Solo Cups,
I was just gonna say, but you're talking about something. I've
but
always used
doubling
them
them up.
too. Yeah,
Yeah. Now, that's
yeah,
something I've been seeing a lot of people on YouTube talk about is doubling them up and putting one inside the other, using the bottom one for bottom watering, the top one. You put holes in the one you plant in, and then you don't put holes in the one for water, obviously, and you set that one down in there. That way you can still bottom water your red solo cups, right? Well, I even come across another video and I'm like, duh, this makes a lot of sense. For your watering one, use the clear ones. That way you can always watch your water level. And I thought that's genius. Use clear
that
ones
is
on the
genius.
outside one, and then you always know when you need to add water. So it's something I didn't even none of the others were even talking about. And I come across this video and I went,
That's
well,
really
that's just like
genius.
common sense. Why wouldn't I have thought of that? But
Yeah, I
that's
like
really
that.
smart. So put a red solo cup with some holes in it down into a clear plastic
Right.
cup without holes in it. Use it to water, and you got that way you're still bottom watering, and it'll hold more water, and you have to water as often.
And we
So I
may
thought,
have talked about this. I think we did last time. But the solo cups, I hate to bash any other brand, but when we say Solo cups, I know it's a brand. They are definitely sturdier than buying. I tried one year to go
Mhm.
with the little bit cheaper generic ones. They fell
Yeah.
apart in one year. Where the
Yeah.
Solo cups, you can actually use them. I don't. I have some, I think, that are 3 or 4 years old.
And folks, be frugal when you're going to your kids' birthday parties, your friends' birthday whatever. Grab them things, snatch it up at the New Year's parties, the Christmas
Right.
parties. Hey, say hey, just rinse them out and use them. I mean, and make use of them, and you may not have to buy any at all.
Right. There you
Um,
go.
and save some money. It ain't like they're. I mean, if you just wash them out, they're fine.
It's great recycling.
Yeah, and use them up and use them till they start cracking and you can't use them no more. That's what I
So
do.
I use those a lot because then I don't, especially like tomatoes. I love them for tomatoes because I don't have to up pot.
Yes, that's
But
the best. Tomatoes and peppers, they're perfect for
yep.
that.
And you put them in those, and then I put those in the 10-20 tray just to kind of keep it organized on
Yeah.
my shelf because the shelf is wire and the cups tip over. So that's what I use them for. But I've also seen where people have built their own wood ones, which
Mhm.
works really well if where you're growing things is on a floor that you don't have to worry about getting dirty or wet, or even in a greenhouse. It probably wouldn't work so well if you're
I,
doing it in your kitchen
I think they
because
would
they're
work
wood.
really good for soil blocks too.
I
The
use that's
homemade ones.
I want to make some homemade ones because I do when I have time. I really like growing in soil blocks. It's
Yeah.
actually my favorite way to do it, but it definitely is more time consuming. But
Yeah.
my vegetables just seem so much healthier when I do it.
Yeah.
So I put
I
links in here
I
for the
don't do the
soil
soil
block.
blocks, but yeah, I think they are a great way to go.
Yeah, I put links in here for the soil block maker company that I have. There's a set that you can buy, which it's a little bit cheaper, but it's not cheap. Soil block makers are expensive. But then I put a link just for the solo. I tend to make the what are they? Probably the 2x2 square ones. Those seem to be the one I make the most of.
Yeah, they
And
got the
I
small ones.
use
They got the really small ones you can make, and then basically you'll take that and set it inside of the bigger
Yes.
one when
They have like a dimple
Yeah.
maker, and yeah,
Yes.
and then so it has the little tiny ones you can set inside the 2x2, and then you can get the bigger one that you can set the 2x2
Yeah.
in. I do have that bigger one, and I really like it, but like I said, this is time consuming. And when I make this, which is linked below, I usually like to use Elliot Coleman's soil block maker mix,
Okay.
his recipe, which I
His
linked
mix
below.
for
We'll
soil.
talk about in the
Yeah.
soil, yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in a second. But
But you
yeah.
also linked to the Bootstrap Farmer.
Yeah, you put a link in for a YouTube video on how to build your own seed starting trays. So that
Yeah, that's like the wood ones with the 3 sides, which work really well for soil blocks.
okay. Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people. I mean, if you're against plastics and you don't want to bring all that stuff, that's awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately it is the ideal way to do it.
Well, and the other thing
Um,
is there's like almost nothing to store.
I also think it's a little bit messier, and if you're doing a lot of your stuff in your house, nowhere it can be a lot messier. If you got like
It
a
is.
place
It
that's
definitely
soil's
is.
getting loose and going everywhere, and yeah, it can be
Yep,
a little messier for sure. And there's a trick to getting that soil just right moisture,
there is.
everything, just to learn how to really get that stuff to hold together good while you plant in them.
It's like a chocolate cake mix. It's like what a
Yeah.
chocolate cake. Yeah,
Yeah, there's a system. You get good at it, I think. But I mean, I've been
I
around
do.
enough people doing it. I've even done it I was at a friend's house one day and I was like, let me try that, and I've
Yeah,
actually don't have them, but I think they're a great way to go.
I really enjoy. I know a farmer that does thousands of them every year because he does market growing.
Ultimately, it can be a lot cheaper too than buying a lot of seed trays.
So he actually sells his like that. He sells the soil blocks. And once
Mhm.
so the soil blocks are kind of fragile until the plant gets bigger. And then the roots hold it together. And so he sells them like that. And for him, that's a huge income boost to not have to buy pots to sell in. He just hands them a plant with the soil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about soil now. Let's talk about the actual soil. Can be an expense if you're buying some nice
Hmm.
seed starting soil. Now,
I
there's a
can't
difference between
wait.
potting soil, seed starting soil,
Hmm.
topsoil, compost. All these things are different. I'll let you just go ahead and say it. What makes seed starting soil, say, different than potting soil? Do you know?
Uh, for me, I don't actually, I'm really bad about soil
Okay.
stuff.
It's
For me, it's
sterile. for one
Okay,
thing.
that's true. It's sterile.
Yeah.
The other thing for me is it holds water, I feel
Mhm.
like way better. So there's
Yeah.
usually something like cocoa core, um, usually actually anymore it's cocoa core. Very few people use peat
It's
anymore, but it's usually got cocoa core in it. It's usually has like vermiculite or perlite in it.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, sterile
But
would
the
be
sterile is probably the main thing that it is. It
yeah.
is better for moisture absorption and all that things. I generally make my own. I have this
So
permaculture
do you
mindset.
sterilize yours?
Well, I have this permaculture mindset, so in the early days, it was always like, seeds fall on the ground, you plant them in the ground, they grow. You don't need no special soil. I can just take the soil out of my garden and I can use it to seed start. And you can absolutely do that. But you're not just bringing soil in your house. You're bringing pathogens
Right.
and you're potentially bringing insects. Say hi
Yes.
to all the
Yeah.
little bugs that I just brought in, didn't even know. Aphids are the worst. If you get aphids like doing that, and it can happen, there is a fix for that. And I did this for years and I would just deal with the issues after I got them in the house. The fix is you can throw it in the oven and you can sterilize it.
That's a
Um,
lot of throwing it in the oven if you're doing a lot, though.
you can. And I don't do it all the time. I'm just saying if you don't want to deal with the issues, you can take about a 4 inch thick, spread about 4 inches thick in a pan, throw it in for just, 20 minutes at about 180 and all problems go away. And you got a good soil there and you can use it. But now I don't do that usually because I'm building my own soil because I'm using a little bit of garden soil of my potting soil that I make, and I'm using leaf mold for the water retention.
Right.
And so, you know, I
So
just
you're
don't.
using compost and leaf mold. Are you adding anything else? Is that
I
what
actually
your
don't.
link
I
is
actually
here?
don't use compost. I actually just use like a more of a topsoil with mixed about 50-50 leaf mold is
Okay,
actually
do
what
you?
I'll use because actually you don't want too much with tomatoes and peppers. You can get away with it, but with
Yeah.
some things you
You don't
don't
want too
want
much from it.
too much nutrients in
Yeah.
in your seed starting soil. A seed actually has all the nutrients it needs to sprout
Yep.
and grow and germinate and go. So you don't want too much. It's okay to have a little in there, but you don't want it overloaded. So I don't use compost, but I do use leaf mold and I use some topsoil. And I'll just kind of mix that about 50-50 and I use it and it works. Does it work as good as what you're going to go buy as a
Yeah.
probably not. I probably get a lower germination rate and probably doesn't even grow quite as good early on as it might in a completely
Hmm.
sterile seed starting mix.
Right.
But I feel like the price difference is worth it because
Oh, yeah.
I don't have to buy anything,
See, that's what I'm hoping to get to. I'm not making any of my own compost or soil yet, and it's I really want to up that game a lot once we
And
are able to.
generally what I'll do even is, and I'll do this with things that are going to be going a little bit longer, like tomatoes and peppers. I don't generally
Right.
bother adding anything to anything that's only going to be in there, say 2 or 3 weeks. If I just see
Yeah,
started at maybe
exactly. Yeah,
three,
yeah.
if I'm starting at like 6, 8 weeks early, I feel like I need to feed it a little bit after a
Like,
while.
yeah, and a
So
lot of peppers need that.
yeah, so what I generally do, especially with peppers and tomatoes, is I will do my mix, and then about after they germinate and are up, about 2 weeks in, I add some worm castings to the top. Is
To the
really all I
top.
do,
Oh, interesting.
and I just kind of water it in and let it kind of feed it. I'll usually put maybe like a half inch probably of worm castings on each one, and it seems to do fine until it's time to transplant, and I don't do anything else. But
Hmm.
that's me. And then some people actually buy mixes
Well,
and keep
that's
it
really
going.
similar to how David the Good. I put a video in
I seen you
for
had a link in there.
actually it's a whole article, but he's got a couple of videos within the
Mhm.
article of his, and he actually does it a lot like you're doing it.
Does he? Okay, I didn't watch the
Yeah.
video, but yeah, I'd like
Yeah.
to. Yeah, I want to
And
go along
then
with
of
this.
course I also put a link for Elliot Coleman, which Elliot Coleman is like the market gardener grow guy. His has obviously got amendments in it like green sand and pot,
Yes.
he's definitely using things where he's I wouldn't call Elliot a permaculturist. He's a
Mhm.
fantastic gardener,
Yeah.
but he's not trying to
He
close loops like we're trying to close loops.
right. I think that I actually I think leaf mold to me replaces vermiculite or peat moss even.
Do you get your leaf
Um,
mold from your own property
I
then?
do, yeah, and that's why I started using it because I've been making my own leaf mold. So it's been, it's like again closing loops, so using what's on my property instead of
Right.
bringing in more stuff. And I think that vermiculite does a little bit better. I actually think that peat moss probably does a little bit better than leaf mold, but I
Yeah.
also like the fact that leaf mold doesn't cost me anything. Now, I
Exactly.
now I will, and I think you do this too. Use vermiculite on top of your trays to keep them from getting like uh mold or anything like on top of the
I
or
do
mildew
on
on
some of
top.
them, and
Yeah.
some of it too, it is for especially on my onions. It gives
Okay.
just a little bit of weight for the onion
Yeah, you can also do the
seed.
same with the sorghum peat. You can do that,
Hmm.
and that'll kind of prevent it too, because basically it just helps keep the tops dry where they're not,
Hmm.
getting moist and inviting some of that crud on there. Because a lot of times you'll get that green mold, and
Yep.
actually I've never really I've had that happen. I've transplanted them in the garden. I've not had a lot of issues. It can kill your plant if you let it get out of control, but if you kind of keep it in control, it's not too bad. But generally, it's from
Yeah.
top watering you'll get a lot of that. Um,
My one of my mentors, Craig Schaff, the one that I said that makes thousands of soil blocks, his almost are always coated in that green and he
yeah.
never has issues, but he always bottom waters,
Yeah.
always.
But
And
if they're soaking it up to the top, it still does it. It still
and
gets
he
some.
does of course this is what he does every day. He doesn't have a job. This is his job. And he hand waters everything. All he
Mhm.
doesn't have anything on sprinklers because he wants to see what's happening, not just put it on sprinklers. So, I think you can do that.
I guess I mentioned all that just to say I do try to keep most of my stuff on the property, but I do buy some vermiculite and I do buy some sorghum peat for little things like
Yeah.
that because I feel like it makes a big difference. And I can just add a little bit of that. And it did, I don't think the leaf mold does near as good at preventing that from happening. It kind of just absorbs and becomes part of the soil, right? So I feel like adding a little bit, I use peat, you use the vermiculite for that, just
Yeah.
to sprinkle on the top of the soil to keep that dried out a little bit better.
You
So
like peat over coco coir?
I think it works better. I think
Yeah.
coco core is more environmentally friendly, though.
Yeah, I know. I just wondered. Yeah.
And I think there's
Sometimes it's
people,
getting harder and harder to find
yeah,
peat.
the sorghum peat I think works the best for, which is actually more environmentally friendly than the other
Yeah.
kind of peat. So if you can get that and use that on top, you don't need a big giant block of it. You could get a smaller
No.
block of it and just
And
use
a
it for
little
that.
bit of that stuff goes a
Yeah,
long
and
way.
honestly, if you want to use that instead of leaf, if you don't have leaf mold, use some sorghum. Use your peat moss in your mix if you're making your own, and you just need to say you got some topsoil and you can mix that. I've mixed that 50-50 with peat, and it actually ain't bad. It makes a pretty nice seed starter, I think. I've bought a lot of seed starter mix too. Don't get me wrong. It just gets
Hmm.
expensive. If you're starting a lot of seeds, it can get pretty expensive.
It is. And as when I was starting here, and even now when I get busy, I do buy seeds. I will buy seed starter
Hmm.
soil. Because when I started here, all we had was sand and I had nothing. And so unfortunately, when you're in that
Yeah.
position, you have to bring things in.
Oh yeah. Early on, I bought.
Now I could use my topsoil and leaf mold easily, but I don't have any leaf mold because I don't really have anywhere
Yeah.
for
I
compost or leaf
usually
mold here.
I usually set up a couple fence rings every year
Right.
and fill them. It's funny though, you'll fill them like humped up full way up above, like you got like a 4 foot piece of fence in a circle, and I'll
Hmm.
fill it up with leaves and I'll have it humped up, 2 feet above the fence, 6 foot tall pile. And then about 3 weeks, you got about half that. And about 3 weeks later, you got about half that. And then it ends up being about a foot to 2 foot of actual leaf mold in the bottom from a 6 foot tall
Yeah.
pile of leaves. It's kind of funny
My
how fast.
problem is
Um,
most of my yard is sloped, so I have a hard
yeah.
time finding anywhere to put anything like that.
Yeah, I'll just set it up
And I
anywhere. Like
needed to do it.
I got a big
Yeah.
old ring set out here right by the kids' swing set. I mean, just made a big ring and started putting all my leaves in it, and then it's only about a foot tall now, and it was humped up. It's like 5, 6 feet tall at one point, so it's
Yeah,
breaking
I
down really
really
good.
see now I need to learn from you. I need to do more of that
And
because
then, but
yeah.
actually what I'm using this year is last year's leaf mold that I made, and I just put it in a tote and lock it down and put it in put it in the barn and save it for seed starting the
Mm.
next year. And I'll make some really good, I'll break it down and make sure it's really good and crumbly, and then I'll just fill a tote up with
I
it.
really have no excuses now with 20 acres of trees.
Yeah, you got plenty of leaves for sure.
Yeah, I got no excuse. I mean, some of that's pine, but there's a lot of leaves there.
Yeah,
I
yeah, you
got
got a
no
lot of leaves. So.
excuses now.
But I would
If
say if
I'm
you're
not
new,
growing leaf bulb night next year, you should yell at me.
if you want extra success, if you want, even if you just want to increase your success levels to the max and you're fairly new to it and you don't have all the stuff, go buy, you put a good recommendation in here for the coast of Maine.
I like their stuff
Mix.
because it's clean. You do have to worry about like some of the soil and compost that you're getting now
Yeah.
causing problems, but
Yeah.
they have it's a clean product and it does have leaf mold in it.
And in the end, if you go down to your Walmart or your TSC and you buy a seed starting mix,
Yep.
it's fine. You're going to use it to get your seeds going. It's fine. Use
Yep.
it. I say get your seeds going.
Use
I
what
mean,
you
the reason
have.
you're seed starting is to save money, though. I mean, ultimately, because here's the truth: if it wasn't so expensive, to just go buy plants. The amount of plants that I'm buying, I'd probably just go buy
Oh,
plants to save myself all the
yeah.
seed starting headaches, right?
Exactly.
Because
Yeah.
it is a lot of work, but it saves you so much money because seeds are so much cheaper than plants. I mean,
Well, and the other reason to grow from seed is if you want a specific variety, because sometimes when you go
yeah.
down to your store, you can't find
And
a specific
there's a
variety.
bunch of reasons to do it. I mean, the
Yeah.
heirloom and grow, this food security and always having the
Yes.
plants. And there's 100 reasons to do it, but honestly, it is a lot of work. And if you
Hmm.
didn't have the time and it was work and you can afford it, buying plants is actually way easier, no doubt about it. I mean, I've done it a couple times, and when I got really running late and I was behind on things, I just went down and bought a lot of plants and punched them in the ground and had great garden.
Well,
But
I did it last year because last year we had a late frost. Actually, we had a late freeze and it killed
yeah,
some of my peppers. So I went and bought peppers.
2 years ago I did it big time because that's when I put or was it 3 years ago? I put the big garden out here in front of my barn that wasn't never there before, and I rototilled it. Of course, I'd already started, and I was already just running late because I waited till spring, and then I rototilled, and it was already a little bit going in like a month later than what it probably should have been going in anyway. So I just went and bought a bunch of plants, and I
Yeah.
put that garden in, and I got to go. I did start some things from seeds. I mean, the leafy greens and things all were seeds still.
Mhm.
They did fine, but like tomatoes, peppers, all the stuff I would have started from seed, it was all bought, and
Well,
I had a great garden.
But like everything, like you said, it's gone up. I mean, even this last year, everything has gotten so much more expensive. I remember last year when I bought a couple of peppers being floored at how expensive they were in
Yeah.
comparison to what they were 3 or 4 years ago.
Yep. You will spend hundreds of dollars
Mhm.
stocking a garden up with baby plants, and it will cost you tens of dollars done right
Mhm.
to grow that many plants in a seed starting setup. So, it's a better deal.
For sure.
Let's move on to watering. You got automatic waterers, Rachel?
I do.
How's that
I
working out
do.
for you?
They work pretty good. The one thing I do not like about automatic waters is they water automatically whether they need it or not.
Yeah.
Now it is nice if you want to go away for a week. Up here, what happens is it's about time to start seeds, and it's also about that time of year where everybody from the north is really tired of snow and decides they want to leave for a week. So my seedlings all get started, and then I end up, how are they going to get watered for the week we're gone or the week and a half we're gone? So I bought this system. It works. It's not ideal. I still think you probably need to be hand watering, especially seedlings, because they're so temperamental if they get too much water or not enough water. But it works. It works pretty well. I use a 5-gallon bucket, and it's got like little drips that you can put into I put them into the 5 or the 10-20 trays. And it works. And I have that and the lights on timers.
Well, I just use a watering can because I'm boring and I don't ever go anywhere. I just stay home all the time. I never leave for more than a day. So I'm able to water my stuff whenever it needs it. But bottom watering is very
Yeah,
important.
for
We
sure.
mentioned earlier about having the cell tray sitting down in other trays. So, and I just go about the middle, pull out on a little bit, and I got a really small watering can with a really small spout on it. And I just pull it out and I cram it in between the two, and I fill it up about
Yeah, I do the
halfway
same thing.
on the cells. I have to go about
Mhm.
halfway up. I can see where it's at. Go about halfway up, and that's where I water it to. And I wait till it's completely gone before I
Yep.
water it again.
I'm really liking this idea though of those clear bottom cups. I'm thinking that because you're like guessing and you're kind of in there going, well,
Yeah, yeah,
is
with the
there
seat,
water
with
in
the
there?
solo cups.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
I
really
just
like that.
it's like how would not even think of that before,
Yeah,
It's
I
it's
like that a lot. That's genius.
yeah. Uh, we'll get into it here in a second, but this is where I ran into a little bit of trouble using your method with the Mylar thermal blankets around my
Okay.
thing and the heat mats in combination.
They got a little too warm, huh?
Water went away a little quicker than I thought it would. Like,
Oh,
I mean, it
it
evaporated the
evaporated.
water so fast that I thought I had
Oh,
like a couple days before I was gonna have to water
and
again,
you didn't?
and I killed 2 trays of onions
Oh
because it dried them
no.
out so fast.
Oh wow.
So now I actually have one of those blankets lifted up. Anyway, we'll get into the heat stuff here in a minute. But anyway, yeah, watering is keep an eye on your watering because yeah, they won't
Yeah.
survive without water very long. So
No, not
gotta keep up on that.
these little baby seedlings are so dependent on you. Think of them as a child or an infant. They're
Yeah.
just really dependent upon you.
And even more so now, this to me is even a less delicate stage than the hardening off stage.
Yeah.
That is the scariest stage for me of seed starting. And
Yeah.
we'll get into that here in a little bit. But that we'll get when we talk about that, I'll tell you my fears in that. I mean, you got to be so on top of your game when it comes to
Hmm.
hardening off because you can lose stuff pretty fast. But anyway, let's move on to lights. You and I both have Barina lights. You have the white lights.
I do.
I have the pink ones. I actually like the white ones. You said you wanted some pink
I
ones.
like the white ones because you don't have that pink glow.
Yeah, I have a constant pink glow in this room that I'm growing
Yeah,
everything.
and I mean, and I bought them because I have a friend that's a horticulturist, and he told me the white ones will be fine for what you're doing because I'm just starting seeds and putting them outside. Now, from what I've read, and I could be wrong, the pink definitely is better if you're doing like aquaponics or growing
Yeah, and
inside
that's what
because
I bought
it
them for
goes to like the
originally was
fruiting, the
aquaponics.
flowering. And I'm not doing that yet, but
Yeah.
I actually am tossing around the idea of growing some aquaponics and stuff inside. And
Well, like I
yeah,
said, that was the reason I bought. I had read that or heard that from someone too, and it's the reason I bought the pink ones years ago because I was doing aquaponics and I'm
right.
doing aquaponics and I wanted to indoors and I wanted to be able to grow stuff all the way to harvest. Um, but that pink glow is kind of annoying in a room. I mean, the entire room is just pink
Well,
all
you
day
drive by
long.
people's houses and you're like, oh, they're growing something.
Yeah, it is a pretty weird pink glow coming from that room all the time. But anyway, though I like the white ones though. They're both, I think, similar price. I was looking at the link you put in for yours. I put in a link for the pink ones. They look completely different. Like yours is a one bulb long
Yes.
bulb. I've got the two
Interesting.
foot. Did yours come with like the metal slides that go in the sides to help keep the light pointing down? Because
Yes.
it didn't look like it had that in the picture, so that's why I was asking. Okay.
Yeah, it does. Mine are they are a little bit different. And like I said, I have the 4 foot ones and I would like some 2 foot ones.
Yeah.
But they're
Mine are the two
super,
foot.
they are so light. It's crazy
Yeah, I
how
love how
light
they
they
all hook
are.
together and you got one plug,
Yep.
one outlet you got to plug in.
They're so light.
I've been using them for years. I don't know how many years I've had them, but I've had
I
them for
think I've had
years
mine
and they're
for
still going.
4 or 5.
I think I'm about 5 maybe,
Yeah.
and
And I don't
they
notice a difference in my electric bill
they're
and they run
they're
several
working great.
hours a day.
I need some more because I want to put up another shelf, so I need to order some more. But I think I'm going to order the white ones that you have. You had the link you have is for the 4 foot white ones, right?
I think so. I don't want to
Okay, I'll
click on it because
probably
then I lose
order.
my
I'll find
document.
some. I'll find some 2 foot white ones.
I want to get like I said, I want to try. I might get some pink for 2 foot ones
Yeah,
and
they're
grow all
working pretty
winter. I
well.
like the idea because I started growing some things all winter long inside, like lettuce and stuff, but I still don't think I would need the pink for that. It's more for fruits and
Yeah,
flowers.
I've used.
Like if I was going to do tomatoes, I would need the pink.
Yeah, I've grown lettuce just under fluorescent lighting, just
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
So,
So,
um, well, I mean, there's a lot of brands out there for LED lights. I mean, I don't know that there's a big difference in a lot of them. I just
yeah, I don't know either.
find good deals, read a few reviews.
those are
Get the
just
one
the
that best
ones I
fits you.
have, so I can
Yeah,
speak
we put
for it.
links in for the ones we have, and they seem to be doing a great job. But they may be more. There may be cheaper ones out there that were just as good, and you might want
There
to
might be
shop
better
around.
ones too.
Yeah, there might even be, but they seem
Yeah.
to be doing a great job for us. Let's talk about heat. Couple things on heat. One, I've got the heat mats. You have heat mats. I have mine on a timer.
Do.
I have my lights and my heat mats on a timer for I think 12 hours. So I have them on all day and I shut them off at night because I don't
Mhm.
want that not crazy glow
Do you put
coming
a
up the
heat
room all
mat
night.
under everything though?
I do have them under
Do you
everything,
really? See,
and
I
I don't
don't.
need to,
I was
obviously.
gonna say I don't put them under like
I have them in a
bracket.
colder room though. It's a room that's a lot
Okay.
colder than the rest of our house. That's why I did it.
Like tomatoes and peppers, I definitely put
You
heat
definitely have
under.
to have
But
my
like
tomato peppers.
some
Yeah.
of like if I'm starting cabbage or broccoli, I don't worry about it
Mm,
as much
no, I haven't started any. I'm
because
talking.
I'd run out of
I have them
space on
under.
my heat
I
mats.
have them under
So
everything I'm growing right now.
okay,
I meant that.
okay.
Yeah, I don't put them under lettuce. I don't put them under
Yeah,
the
because I actually
brassicas.
only
Yeah,
have four heat mats, and so I run out of space on my heat mats, and so
yeah.
I just selectively use the things that like heat. Basically, if it likes heat, it'll probably like a heat mat.
I think they make everything germinate quicker, but
Oh yeah,
they would also
yes,
not be good for some things after they germinated. So you would definitely want to
yeah.
keep that in control. I used to leave them. There was a time when I used to leave them on like the heat mats on like my peppers and tomatoes 24/7, right?
Okay,
But I quit doing that, and I actually think they do better by not doing that
do
because
you?
I think it actually simulates the outdoors a little bit where it
That's
gets
very
cooler at
true.
night. So I shut them off at night and I let the soil cool, heat it back up during the day, and I think they actually respond better to that
That's
than
really
having
true,
it on
though.
all the time.
I think
So
as much as we can mimic what's going to happen once
yeah,
they're outside, the better they are.
yeah, I think they do better. Plus, it's just less heat bill. I mean, less electric bill, right? Because if you're shutting them off
Yeah.
for 12 hours.
Yeah, because
So
those heat mats probably do like the LED lights don't take much, but those heat mats
yeah, they
probably
take a little
take some
bit of
power.
power.
Yeah.
So what I do is I run them all on the same amount of timer, and I just run them all for 12 hours on, 12 hours off seems to do really good for
Yeah,
me.
we're gonna talk about it later, but I have a timer. Did
I
I
have
tell
one too. I
you?
put in here also. I have one different one than you put
Yeah,
in here.
I have a
Um,
timer and I love it's connected right to the power strip and
yeah.
I end up using every single one of those plugins almost.
Well, we'll
So,
talk about that here in just a second. Let's talk
yeah.
about the Mylar thermal blankets that you wrapped on. This was the idea I got from you.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing this before. I didn't really wrap anything around mine. I just kind of let them hang on the shelves, and you were wrapping, and it does two things. That really like it holds in some heat,
Hmm.
and it
Reflects all that light.
reflects because it's silver, so it kind of or like chromy look, and it kind of reflects everything right back in. That helps hold the light inside. Works fantastic. Like
It does.
yeah, this it really helps hold contain that light. Now, why I'm getting this nice pink glow from my room right now is the Mylar actually does a really good job of holding in that pink glow. But I had to raise one of them on the front because it's so
It's too
stinking hot in
warm.
there.
Well, you got your heat mats on too.
Yeah, they're on through the day. So I'm gonna have to do some adjustment. I just found this out like 3 or 4
Huh.
days ago.
Maybe
So
you
I'm
could
gonna,
open the top so the heat could rise
yeah,
up.
right now I got some adjusting to do to figure out kind of like optimal. What I might do is
Yeah.
I might put the heat mats maybe just like 6 hours a day and put them on a separate timer
Hmm.
or something. I might just do something different. I got to figure out something different because it's too hot in there for
So
sure.
how I got this idea was I didn't have enough grow lights. I wanted more, but I didn't want to spend the money on more. So I thought, well, I have all these. I had bought a 10 pack of these emergency blankets to put a couple in each car, and I had a couple extra. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try putting these around to see if it will help my lack of lights. And then I was like, man, that's really bright in there. That's kind of nice. And the other reason it was because my seedlings are in my canning room and I didn't want the light shining on my jars.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was the reason behind it. And then it just, my plants seemed to work so much better. I seemed to not, sometimes when I was growing under the grow lights, there was always these ones on the edges
Get
that
real
didn't get as
leggy.
much light. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
feel like this just really helped
Yeah.
get light everywhere.
They just kind of reflects it right back in there and they just don't get as leggy.
It's
Yeah.
like blinding. When you look in that little, it's
Mhm.
blinding.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You pull a blanket out and it's like, wow, man, it's really bright in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It does a great job. Does a great job.
And it
It's
was
a
really
beauty pack.
affordable to do it. And I've
Yep.
used these over and over and over.
Yeah. A couple bucks a piece. You buy a 10 pack of them, they're like a couple dollars a piece, maybe, or something.
Yeah,
Something
I
like
just
that.
use regular tape.
And they're not real big, so I took 3 of them to wrap my
Yeah, mine
2 foot
took
plus
3 also.
system.
Yeah.
So they're not because they're not real big, but
Yeah,
so
and I
yeah,
just
it's
fold them up and store them in a box till next year.
yeah. I mean, there's
Yeah.
nothing really. I did tape them. I don't know if that tape will ruin them. I did tape them on, so I don't know if the tape will
My
rip them
tape
or
comes
something.
right
But
back off.
okay, I might be able. I use
Yeah.
box tape. I don't know if it's gonna rip them. But
Oh, I
anyway,
didn't use box.
I
I
used box
used
tape, so it
just
might
like
rip them. I don't know.
I just used your regular Scotch tape.
Okay.
Is what I
Okay.
used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it might not hold up for me. I don't know. Anyway, it works great. It's a great hack. So glad that I learned that from you because I think it's
Just
going to make a
maybe
big
watch the
difference.
heat.
Yeah. I just got to figure out. I think I could probably just shut the heat mats off and maybe just
Maybe.
pick up. But I'm getting ready to plant peppers this next week.
Oh, okay.
I'll probably keep them under the peppers, but honestly, I'll probably just remove them from everything else because I don't think I need them.
And the nice part is that will save you a little bit on your
I
electric
think
bill.
with the LEDs don't put off very much heat, but they do put a slight amount of
They
heat off.
put enough
And I
off.
think if you've
You
got
can
them
feel it.
I think if you got these Mylar blankets wrapped around, I think it's enough heat. And if I
Yeah.
say got my tomatoes on the bottom shelf and the heat mats under that, whatever heat's being produced there will rise up enough.
I should put a
Keep it playing
thermometer
warm
in
in
mine and
there.
see what the temperature
Yeah,
is
I
now.
have it, and I should too because it got obviously
I
got
bet
really hot.
you my basement's probably at 58 to 62, somewhere around there. I bet you it's 75 to 80 in there without my heat mats on.
Yeah, it puts some heat off, and with the heat
Yeah,
mats
you
on,
open it up and you
way
can
too
feel
hot.
the heat come
Yeah,
out.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
way too hot. So I got some adjusting to do to it to get it right. But yeah, I think if you get it right though, it's a great combination and it's going to work really, really well.
I
But it
wonder if
puts
your blankets are a little bit thicker. Yours says
no, they're
thermal.
pretty thin. Like I can see through
Okay.
them actually
So
almost.
I can see through
Yeah,
mine too.
yeah. They're
Okay.
really thin. When the light's glaring in there, you can actually barely see through them and see outlines of
Yeah.
stuff in there. Yeah. Um, timers. Let's talk about timers. You've got one. The one you put in here is got like it's built into a power strip, you said.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool. I actually use a little bit cheaper ones and I just plug the power strip into them. And I kind of
Okay.
like that because I can set stuff on different times where you're going to set
That is
everything in a power
nice.
strip on one
Yeah.
time. I can plug
Yeah.
a power strip into mine and plug a different power strip into another one. And I can so I can have my heat mats set on different or lesser times.
That is
depending on
kind of
lights.
nice.
So I
Nice.
got those. I got the single ones, and they're the kind that you just pop the little clip up on. I have digital ones, and they all went bad. I'll never buy them again.
We've had 2 digital ones fail.
Yep.
And I have the one with the little pop-up thing. We actually use that for for our watering, for our automatic watering outside.
Yeah.
We use
Okay.
that one for that. But I might go back to the analog, which is what you call
I
that.
used to use the digital ones on all aquaponics and stuff, and they just kept failing. I had
I
some
am
that didn't
just
fail,
more
I
and
just
more.
said, and these other ones are cheaper. These analog ones, then it's
Yeah.
like a timer and it turns, and you have to if they're popped up, they
Mhm.
see if they're popped up, they come on. If they're pushed down, no, it's pushed down, they come on. Popped up, they go off. I think that's how it is. And you just whatever how
More
much time
and
you
more,
want.
I am becoming a fan of some of the older school technology.
Yeah, it
because
works.
Analog,
And I've never had one of those fail. Been using those for years too, and I've never had one of those fail. So
yeah, maybe I'll buy that because we actually had 2 of them die last year, and
Yeah,
they weren't old. They were like a year old. Yeah, because we
yeah.
kind of have them on little things everywhere, like for certain things.
Well, I've always used a bunch of them because of aquaponics, because I've always had timers on
Yeah.
everything, pumps and
Timers
just
make your
everything.
life so much easier.
Yeah,
because
I
if you
love it.
think you're gonna remember to turn the lights off, you're not.
No, and I've
You're
been,
just
in the past, I've worked lots of hours, so I wasn't home to do things. So just like it just made things happen, whether I was home or not, which
Right.
was ideal.
Even if you think you can remember or you do remember, I feel like the more we can make systems that don't require as much input, the better.
Yeah, I mean, you could ultimately build like this, I guess, ultimate seed starting rack where you could put water delivery on timers.
Yeah.
You could put your heat mats on timers. You could put, of course, your lights on timers. You could have like this ultimate seed starting station where you just didn't hardly have to touch it, and that would be pretty cool, I guess.
It would be pretty cool.
Didn't want no hands on. You still have to inspect to make sure
I
everything's
think you
working
would
all right.
still have to go in and
Yeah, I'd want to go back.
but,
I'd want to look every 2 or 3 days to make sure everything's going good.
But you could, I mean, if you were a person that was working a lot, but you really wanted to do this and you were okay with investing some money up front, it could make your life really easy. It could
Yeah.
make working a full-time job and homesteading doable.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
I
people
actually
with
built,
automatic chicken doors and if that's
yeah.
what works for you.
I built a fodder system and I haven't used it this year. I used it the last couple of years. But I haven't brought it in this year. I haven't been feeding the rabbits much fodder this year, which I should have been. I put up a lot of tree hay though for them, so I didn't really need to. Um, but in the past when I was making a lot of sunflower seed,
Oh yeah.
fodder for
I've
them.
seen your system. It's really
Yeah,
cool.
it works really well. But I actually put a little pump on a timer in the bottom because what you do is you basically pour a gallon of water through the
Yeah.
top every morning and let that kind of drain
And
through.
it's
And
got it. Yeah.
twice a day, I would do that, and it would water everything, and then it would dry out and keep sprouting. And I actually got it set it on a timer like that, to where twice a day it would just dump. I'd run for say like 5 minutes, and it would be roughly a gallon or so of water, and dump through it and wash it out. Flood, drain down the bottom, and just I'd have it kick on. I didn't have to go out there. I'd literally just go out there like every couple of days and get a tray of seeds and start another one and grab the old one and swap all the.
Yeah. I mean,
It was easy. Yeah.
you could do so much that you could do that for your animals. You could do that for yourself with like sprouts or microgreens. I mean, automation
Oh yeah.
is nice. I mean, we have technology. We're in
I,
the age of technology. There's
I
nothing
love
wrong
being a
with
modern
using it.
homesteader.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's, the modern homesteading podcast.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with using technology. There's nothing
No.
wrong with not using it. So,
No. Yeah,
yeah.
it's fine. Yeah, I love timers. They're really great. And I also love our next thing we're going to talk about, which is for air movement,
Yes.
because this is going to make your life a little bit better when you do go to harden off your plants. If you've got some
Yeah.
air movement across those plants. Now, I'm a little bit concerned because, again, I've always had open shelves and I've always used a big box fan just to kind of move across there. Now I've got those Mylar blankets around. What do you do?
Well, at some point after they're sprouted and doing really good, I do end up
Remove
lifting
the
the
blanket.
sides up.
Okay.
It just depends. It depends on how warm the basement is and what's going on. Because my basement is basically it's not a Michigan basement, but it's certainly not insulated. So whatever's going on outside kind of affects what's going on in the basement.
It's less for me. I've got mine in the house in a room. It's not, it's maybe 10 degrees cooler than the rest of the house, but it's not bad.
But I definitely, it's so hard to say because it's kind of like when your grandma cooked and she said, how many cups do you put in it? And she said, oh, it's how it feels. That's kind of how I go with what's going on with my plants. But the fan definitely helps. It helps harden them off. It helps them not get moldy.
Your plants will get much stronger.
And it helps them get stronger because they have that. It's just mimicking what's going on outside.
Yeah.
And
so what I generally do is, of course, I'll just have to raise everything up, throw the fan on there.
Yep.
And you could do
I usually will roll it up
the day or something. Yeah. And then drop it
during the day or at night. What I did last year was this is the part that gets labor intensive because none of this is automated is I don't like the lights on at night for some reason. I just don't. So I turned the lights off at night, but the fan was running. So I would roll up the sides at night, have the fan run, roll them down during the day. And
okay. That makes sense.
That's kind of how I did it. But towards the end, I don't worry about the blankets being on as much.
Gotcha. Yeah. Because I definitely was. I mean, I kept thinking of different ways that you could buy a bunch of those small clamp-on fans and put them inside of it and have one for every shelf. I get a little expensive. Those things like $30 a piece, Yeah. And you could have one. You could have one for every shelf blowing across that shelf, plus more electricity.
Or you could just have.
I'm not gonna do
nothing on the ends. You could just do two sides of your shelf and have it blow down the end of it.
Yeah, do something like that. Yeah. Anyway, air movement's important. It will do a few things. It actually helps keep your top of your soil dried out too, which can actually it prevents some of that mold and
I find that not running a fan at least in my basement in Michigan where we can have high humidity in the spring. I just am asking for disease and die off and you
can run into some problems by not having some good air movement across those plants. So
I just use a regular box fan.
Me too. Okay, it works then. That's why I was wondering if you're doing the same thing I was doing.
Cheap old whatever store box fan. Sometimes I usually will set it on a chair just so it's getting all of the levels.
You want to get into this next thing a little bit? You put in this notes because I didn't think to put it in here. Soaking, scarification, stratification.
Of course, I forgot my notes upstairs when I
This
did
becomes
but yes.
it becomes a big deal if you're especially saving your own seeds.
Yeah. So there's
Generally,
some.
if you're buying seeds, this stuff's already done to a point
Yes.
where it'll
Yes.
just, but except for soaking.
There's some seeds that do much better. Now they'll still sprout, but they just do better if you soak them. So for
Mhm.
example, um, pea seeds, you can soak them for a little bit before you put them in the ground, and it just helps them sprout better. There's soaking, scarification, and stratification. So soaking is soaking in water. The scarification is kind of what it sounds like. You're going to take the seed, and usually these are seeds with really hard sides on them. Like, for example, when I started the lemon
Yeah.
seeds, I soaked them and then I took them and put them on some sandpaper and just kind of sanded it a little bit to break down that outside hard shell. And then I started them. So scarification is basically you're scarring the outside of
You
that
can
hard
also
shell.
do that with hot water on some seeds.
Yes. Yeah. And then the stratification, like you said, if you buy seeds, normally they're wet that way. So I just bought sea buckthorn. And I bought it from a guy in Alaska. I have no idea if he stratified them or not. I emailed them. He hasn't answered me back yet. So I stuck them in some damp soil and stuck them in the refrigerator, so the stratification is basically mimicking winter.
Yeah, so many
a cold period
certain
of
seeds or
time.
plants require so many cold days.
Yeah, so certain seeds need that. Other seeds don't. Like your tomato seeds do not need any of that. But with certain things like sea buckthorn is a cold variety berry. It's like a berry bush type thing.
Yeah.
To mimic outside, they kind of need that cold stratification, which is where you put it in cold. I think what I read was with those, it was 9 weeks or six to 9 weeks. So it just varies depending on the seed. And you don't like if you're just buying your seeds from Baker Creek, they've already done all this for you.
What's kind of cool though, it isn't really a bad thing to keep all your seeds in your refrigerator. Say you had a little like an old wine fridge or something you had out in your garage or another extra refrigerator. If you could like say I've got those 3 binders, throw them in a refrigerator, it won't hurt any of your seeds. It'll actually help preserve them longer, give you better germination rates if you store your seeds in cold anyway. And it can also, if any need requires stratification, kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone that way. So it's not a bad idea for seed storage anyway.
And since we talked about that, at the very bottom, I have this little booklet. I like these little story booklets. It's called Seed Starting Booklet from Story. It's that, the big book that you can get of Story Homesteading. They have a bunch of booklets that they put out that are like, I don't know, 15 to 30 pages. In that booklet for $3.95, they have tables of what should be soaked, what should be what you should use stratification on, what you should use scarification on. They have just these tables, and
nice.
It's a nice little guide to seed starting, and it's very concise. I really like it. I bought it, I don't even know, 10 or 12 years ago.
And they're cheap too. The booklets are pretty cheap.
They are, and it's really concise. You don't have to read a whole book to go through it. It gives you just enough information to get you started. And then it has the lists. It even has flowers in there, certain flowers that like those things. So yeah, it's a nice little booklet.
Awesome. Yeah. So which plants are you starting? Which ones do you start inside versus direct sow out in your garden?
For me, up here, it's going to be different probably for somebody than if somebody lives in like
down
Tennessee
south,
or something like that. But, or even if you lived in Florida, I don't know. If you're in Florida, can you just start tomatoes and peppers outside?
Probably. I would think. I mean, why not?
Here,
plenty of growing season. So,
right here, I start tomatoes, peppers, most of my herbs, onion, celery, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, which if you listen to the last podcast have been an utter failure for me. And melons, I start all those inside early. Now, it depends. Melons and, I didn't put squash on here. Melons and squash, I don't start super early.
Right.
They
two,
grow
three
so
weeks.
fast.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
3 weeks
grow so
probably. Yeah.
fast that you definitely wouldn't want to. But my tomatoes and peppers, any day, I should probably be making decisions.
He- Here's what I determine, how I kind of determine what to do. I look at the seed packets, and generally, if there's two things, there's a couple things I'm considering. One is days to harvest.
Yes.
And generally, if it's like over 85 days, I kind of need
Yeah.
to start that inside.
Yeah. I actually have even started, believe it or not, I have started corn inside.
You can. It doesn't transplant as good as some stuff, though.
I have not had
Um,
any issues with
a lot
it,
of
but
people say it's not a good transplanter. I've never tried transplanting it, but
I do really well that's one of the reasons why I use soil blocks.
okay. Yeah.
When I use the corn with soil blocks, I don't have issues. Now, if I dig corn in
Like you don't want to
and
do
I just
carrots.
stir
There's root
through, oh
vegetables you don't do.
no,
Carrots don't
no.
transplant at all. You don't want
But
to do them.
my friend Craig that does crazy stuff with gardening, he starts just about everything in a soil
Yeah.
block.
Some people
I mean,
did.
corn, and he starts wheat. He's growing some of your ancient, he's growing acorn. He's
The good
growing
thing
some
about soil
wild
blocks
stuff.
is you don't disturb the roots as much as you would with the
Exactly.
pot,
He
so,
starts
yeah.
he starts his beets inside early in soil blocks, which I would not do, but he does. So,
Yeah. So
but I have started corn because some of the corn varieties I wanted to experiment with were really long grow
Yeah.
season.
So that's one of the things I do, and of course tomatoes, peppers, onions, a lot of herbs are that way. A lot of them take a long time to. A lot of things are like 90, even 100 days. I mean, so you got to start that stuff inside if you live in even a halfway mild climate. Now, the second thing I consider is, do I need to harvest this before it gets midsummer? Like
That's
I might
like,
do something. It's only 60 days to harvest, but it might be something that 60 days it's going to be 100 degrees out.
yeah,
So
that's
I
true.
need to start that early and actually harvest that before it gets that hot. So I think of that too. And then I do the same thing in the fall. Like I'll start stuff inside when it's really hot, and then I'm transplanting it out when it's starting to cool down in the fall. I do that in the fall too. So those are the two things I kind of consider when I'm determining what to start
true because
seeds from.
I do start lettuce in cups because I want the second it's not going to freeze, it can go outside. It doesn't need heat.
Yeah.
But it's also the same thing at the other end. It doesn't like heat, but you can start it inside where it's cooler, and once it cools off, you can stick it outside. So
like
yeah,
I'll start peas inside,
Yeah,
even though they don't take that long, but you got to harvest those before before it gets hot. You're not going to have any. I actually do it with some of the brassicas too, because I don't think like broccoli and cauliflower.
It does not like heat.
They need an early start, not because they take a long time to fruit, or to get to where they're ready to harvest, but because you just don't want them out there when it's 100 degrees.
Well, I started starting cilantro because I wasn't getting my cilantro before it was bolting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I started starting my cilantro, even though my cilantro comes up naturally on its own and it's become a weed in my garden. I start some inside so it's actually ready when I want it to be ready.
Yeah. I mean, these are things to consider. And there's so many things I don't like. I don't start like almost no root vegetables. So they grow so fast.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't do beets or I mean, I start that. I direct sow them. All my leafy stuff like kale. I don't even really, unless I'm growing lettuce to eat, I don't grow it indoors. I don't grow it to transplant. I never have. I mean, I usually just grow it and eat it.
See, I have
inside, or I just plant it direct. And I do it with kale and chard, all that stuff. I just sow direct seed it, and it grows really fast. Squash, I've actually direct sowed that too, and it's
even your winter squashes.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
See, my winter squash, I usually start a couple weeks early.
Oh, I usually do. I'm just saying I have, and you get them because I mean, they'll survive right up until late fall just fine. So generally.
But when is your last frost?
I can't remember the day. Mother's Day is what they kind of say around here. It's like don't start planting until after Mother's Day is kind of our saying around here.
Ours is usually Memorial Day.
Yeah, so.
We have probably about, I don't know, 20 to 30 days shorter.
I usually completely abuse that, and I got stuff in the garden like 3
I do too, but anymore it's so confusing. Like right now, Well, winter's back today, but we've had such crazy weather. That's part of the
Yeah.
reason why I have some of my season extension.
And I might direct sow stuff like even a week or so before that because it's not going to be popping up anyway until then.
Yes.
So it's not
I
going to
did
be
that
damage.
last year. And then I
Yeah.
do have, I mean, and then I do have ways to protect it if we do end up
I
getting.
planted like a bunch of nasturtium seeds like 3, 4 weeks early outside direct sow and what they would have been just because they do so good. And as soon as it started getting warm enough, man, they're growing good, and that worked really well. I mean, yeah, just I play everything's different, but I again, there's a lot of things to consider on what to start inside, but one of them is definitely space. Like how much room do I have and how much can I start
Man,
inside?
that becomes a big issue
Yeah,
towards the end
yeah,
of
everything gets bigger.
when it
Yeah.
gets to the point where you're needing to harden off. You, I don't know about you, but for me, it gets to the point where there is just so many plants that I'm dealing with, and I've run
Well,
out of space, and I'm taking
yeah,
things
for
in and
sure.
out, and uh,
Well, you just mentioned harden off. We mentioned it a couple times hardening off. It is the most stressful time for me when it
oh
comes to
my
planting my
gosh,
garden
yeah,
because I have lost some really
hmm
nice
me
whole
too.
trays of things because I messed up. And
Yep.
and you just takes more attention. This moment takes more attention than just
hmm
about anything else. It's and hardening off is you're slowly trying to adapt your plants to an outside environment. Doesn't
Yep.
sound like that would be too hard,
Oh,
but
but it is.
it is because your plants are not used to hard direct sunlight for several hours. They're not used to the breeze, the outside breeze,
Right.
the differences in fluctuations of temperature. They're not used to
hmm
these things, and you have to slowly, like take them out for a couple hours, then maybe 3 hours, then 4 hours
Yep.
over a few days. Try to increase their time before you transplant them to the garden.
Yeah, it is the time when um you have to be really, you just have to pay attention to detail and not forget that.
Now,
Unfortunately, this is one thing you really probably can't automate. Maybe there's a way to automate it, but I don't know. I have to haul, I take them in and out
yeah,
every day during
it's a
this
pain.
time. I have to protect them too from animals. It
Yep.
feels like the squirrels and stuff.
Yeah. More
I
birds will fly
swear
down,
they're
pick at
sitting
them.
there
Yeah.
watching, going, "Oh, it's that time of year that this lady brings out her trays for us to eat."
Yeah, I've never done it, but it might not even be a bad idea to make like a net house or something to put
Ugh,
them in outside because I mean, you think about insects start tearing them up at
yeah.
this time. I mean, a lot of things could happen. My biggest issue has always been like I left stuff out too long
I've accidentally like yeah, I've done the same
and
or
I've left things out overnight accidentally because I wasn't paying attention, forgot to bring them in, dead.
that's what
Next
I've
morning.
done. I've done them overnight and then they froze, which is what
Yep.
happened to me
I've
last
done
year with
that
peppers.
and I've left them out in the
Um
sun too long, too early,
in the
and I
sun
fried them. Yeah.
and they dry out so much faster when they're
Yeah.
out
You
there.
gotta
So
water them.
not
Yeah.
paying attention to the watering.
So
Yeah.
now, how I actually had a few years where this wasn't a problem because I was heating my greenhouse, and for whatever reason, when I start my seeds in my greenhouse, I just open the door through the day, and there's enough breeze in there, and nothing gets transplant shock. I can just take it directly from the greenhouse to the
Ugh,
garden, and
I
there's no
want one so
problem.
bad.
But when I do it inside, but the difference is I don't have to heat. I mean, I already got my inside heated. It's a lot of money to heat the greenhouse. Costs a
Yeah.
lot. So it's like this, man, which is better, I the transplant or the hardening off is such a hassle that sometimes it's almost worth heating the greenhouse for.
It
But
is a lot of work.
yeah,
I mean, and it depends. I mean, I suppose if you've only got a couple of trays to take in and out, it's not a big
yeah.
deal.
But
For
when you're doing a
me,
lot, it's a lot. Yeah.
I usually have, gosh, I don't know. I probably usually have 12 to 15 or 16 trays,
Yeah, me too.
sometimes more. And
Yep.
it's like we're talking an hour every night. And everybody, it's the time of year when my family kind of gets annoyed with me because I ask them to help me.
Come on, let's go get this
Yeah.
stuff. Oh yeah. Yeah. That and when the next thing we're going to talk about is actually the transplanting, and especially if you're a little early or if you get a late
Yeah.
frost, it's like you're bugging everybody. Get some blankets, get some stuff. We got to go and cover everything up, and you're out there, and and
Yep.
if you got some row cover and you've already got your hoops up and stuff, and it's convenient, and you just got to slid over. That's what I generally do anymore.
Yep.
I go ahead and put the hoops in, and I just lay the row. If it's not bad, I just keep the row cover kind of spread out down, and I just lay some rocks on it or whatever. And
Man,
then
row
if I
cover
have to
is
run
the
out
best
there,
thing.
kick the rocks off, drag it over the hoops, throw the rocks on the other side, and you're covered.
Row cover
Um,
is one of the best inventions ever for gardening.
Yeah, it'll save you on a light frost. Now, if it's a hard frost, you're in trouble. You're gonna have to get blankets
Yep.
out.
Yep. And
And
I mean, and I would say, if you cannot afford to get lights and all that kind of stuff, that's cool. But I think that row covers, to me, if I had to pick one thing to
Yeah.
invest in, it would be the row
I
covers.
did it for a long time without it, and I lost a lot of plants over the years
Hmm.
because of it. Yeah. Or you stunt things so bad, it's almost like starting over. It takes
Well,
you so
and I
long
started
to get
using
going
mine
again.
to protect my cabbage from
Me too.
cabbage
That's the first thing I
flies.
bought it for was the cabbage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just they're so nice, and once you have
Grapefruit.
them,
Yeah. Bugs and stuff, everything.
yeah, and once you have them, they last for a long time, pretty much. So they are nice. Because you never know the way the weather has been anymore. I don't know where everybody else is, but where I'm at, we've had basically spring in the middle of January here, and usually our spring does not come till April. And so the weather's just kind of been all over the place. Last year we had a frost in July, which never happens. And so just having these extra measures of protection are nice to have.
Yeah. I'm still blown away by we're reading that book in book club, Ben Falk's book. And they was talking about
Oh,
that
that
year with
year
the year without a summer where
it was 18 something,
they had a killing
1880s.
frost
Yep.
every month of the entire year in
Yeah, and it
Vermont.
was
I was
wasn't
like,
it a year that there was like a really huge volcanic eruption
yeah, it
that
said it
caused
on
a
the
lot
other
of
side of the
clouds?
planet. Yeah, and it just
Yeah.
they said they got
The
a
year with
killing
no summer.
frost
It was the year
every
with no
month.
summer, and they
That's
had,
crazy to me.
yeah, and so it's like you kind of, nature is unpredictable. And so
Yeah,
that's why I have invested in some shade cloth so I can grow lettuce a little bit longer, and why I have row covers.
yeah, yep.
Yep.
It's nice to have these other things. I've done it for years without it. We're not trying to say anybody has to go have these
No,
things.
you don't.
You
No.
just gotta stay on your toes and be ready to drag some sheets or blankets out or something and cover some
Yep.
stuff up and
Yeah, and
keep
you
some
can
things
just
on
use
hand.
regular, go down to
Yeah,
Goodwill and buy a bunch of sheets and
yeah.
I don't know, somehow hook up some hoops. I've used buckets before
Hmm.
if you got a ton of
I just
buckets.
cram sticks in the ground to make little teepees over
Yep.
stuff. I've done that.
And
Yeah.
if it's a light frost, we have ran a sprinkler before. If it was a really light cold snap, it doesn't work great though. But you spend a lot of time growing these seedlings from little babies and hours and hours. To me, it's worth it
Yeah.
to to invest in some sheets or frost
Because
blankets
once you
or
get past
yeah.
that, I mean, everything's really just got such a good head start, and you're going to have a great garden if you can just put a little bit of, yeah, you got a couple months there of like stressful work where you're just kind of like on toes trying to stay on top of everything and and just be on top of it. But then it's going to be so much better because everything's going to be
Yeah.
really established. It's going to have a better root system. It's going to look stronger and healthier. Your garden's just going to be a lot better if you can take a few precautions for a couple months.
And if you get kind of decent at this and kind of good at this, you could start selling a few starts to pay for some of your row covers or
Yeah,
an extra light. I mean,
absolutely.
there is a lot of people out there that don't have the time or the
Yeah.
desire to do something like this. And if all you sold was 20 plants to, you know, to
And
help subsidize some of your seed, some of your seed habit,
yep,
you
there's
know?
people looking for folks doing that too. Because I've seen a lot of people selling them on
Yes.
Facebook Marketplace and stuff, and it's a lot
Yeah.
cheaper than Walmart's
Hmm.
plants if you go down to Walmart or something to buy them. And you could sell a lot of them real fast, I think.
Well, and people are
Local
starting to want
markets.
like heirloom
Hmm.
varieties or organic. And the other thing nice about buying from somebody that's growing locally is, especially if you're buying an heirloom variety, is you're getting something that's been acclimated to your climate.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Well, a couple resources. You mentioned the seed starting booklet from Story, and you have a
mhm.
link in the show notes for that. I was going to put this link in, and this is a good little book. If you're a first time gardener, if you're brand new to gardening, this all seems a little overwhelming. Well, we have lots of podcasts that can help you, of course, but a good book. And I bought this book not because I'm a first time gardener, but because I just like to support other people writing books and helping
Mhm.
in gardeners. But Jessica Sowards, we were talking about her on a podcast. I couldn't think of her last name a
Oh,
while back, of Roots and Refuge Farm, wrote this book called The First Time Gardeners Growing Vegetables. And it's I don't know if you can see it in the camera or
oh,
not,
I can now.
but
Yeah.
it's not super in depth. It's super simple, and it literally is a good book for first time gardeners
You
because it's
think
just
so?
really
Okay, good.
simple. And it's just, like I said, it's nothing that I learned a ton from because it's a lot of stuff I've already done. But she
Right.
does even have in there like starting seeds, when you should start them, when you should transplant them, and just all the different varieties and what to look for and just different
That's
things.
nice.
She talks about, you know, just season extensions and, just all kinds of stuff. Good little bit of information for a first time gardener. The pictures in this thing are amazing.
I
Got
might buy
some
that for a
beautiful
gift. I
pictures.
might buy that for a gift for a couple of people.
It's for a first time gardener. I think it's a great book. I really think it's a great
Cool.
little starter book that gives you just enough information to give you a nice garden. And I think books like that are important. I love good in-depth books because, I come next level. But when you're a first-time gardener, that's overwhelming, And a
It
book
is
like
really
that,
overwhelming.
yeah, a book like that can be just so helpful because it's really simple. It makes it look really simple because
Hmm.
you know what ultimately it is? You put a seed in the ground, water it, and it grows, right? I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately, but we're always looking for better results or the best results or things that are just going to be over the, it's kind of that next level.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's all pretty simple. It's
And I mean,
designed to be simple.
if you're new to this, there's nothing wrong with going to the star and buying plants.
No, right.
And I would encourage you, if you want to start getting into seed starting, that you maybe just pick one. Like you pick, okay, I want to start my tomatoes this year, and then you
Mhm.
buy everything else.
Yeah,
Just
that's
start
a great.
small and focus on
Yeah,
one thing and learn it and then move on.
that's
You
great
don't have to
advice.
do everything right now. You just don't.
Yeah, and that's a good way to do everything. Just take one thing at a time, move on, expand. You don't have a lot of room. You know what? There's years ago I didn't grow that. Mostly what I started was tomatoes and peppers. And everything else I pretty much planted
Yeah.
either direct sowed or I bought a few things. And you know what? Those were on my kitchen table by them three windows I talked about earlier. That's how I started everything.
Yeah.
For 3 or 4 years, that's what I did.
Yeah.
And because I just did tomatoes and peppers because it was the only thing I had to have a really big head start on. Everything else I would just buy like onion bulbs, the sets where I could just stick in the ground, get them quick enough. They were fine. I would direct sow
Exactly.
those. I mean, uh, potatoes grow pretty fast. You don't really have to do anything with those. So I would just get the things I knew took the longest and go with that. And I might even buy a few plants if there were some other things that I want where I didn't want a lot of them. I just wanted maybe a couple plants. I might go buy those plants. I
I
did that
might
for a
buy
long
Brussels
time.
sprouts this year because I
Yeah.
have not had luck for 3 years in a row. I
Yeah.
might just go buy Brussels
Yeah.
sprout
I mean, you
plants.
might end up with some great, yeah, you might end up with some great Brussels sprouts. I know they need to be started by seed pretty
Oh,
early because
yeah.
I think they're over 100 days, aren't they?
They are. And I have
Yeah.
started them really, really early, but just not quite early enough. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I read them peanuts are like 100 days too.
they are. They are.
Ugh. I better get them going.
Yeah. They're fun though.
I don't think, yeah, we talked about that in the member pre-show. We was talking about, I got me some peanut seeds. 'Cause I'm gonna try peanuts this year for the first time. So, yep, I got some learning curve to do on those. I got to figure out exactly what I'm doing there. But yeah, we talked about all that in the pre-show. So
Yeah.
again, you want the pre-show,
Right?
join
Yeah.
us on Patreon or in the membership. I'd love to have you listening to that. I think that I don't know. It's more just us being us in that member pre-show for sure. Unless
Definitely.
probably a lot less information, but a lot more personality probably. So
There's definitely a lot more personality, but I mean, I put some information in there.
yeah, we try
Yeah.
that. I mean, we're telling you things we're doing and some recommendations and things too. So yeah,
Yeah.
join us there if you like. If you want a little bit more of us.
Yeah. And I have a
Well,
fun interview coming up or maybe it'll be posted by the
it's going to be
time.
posted before this one, so
Oh, good.
folks in this are going to hear it. So all right. Well, anything else you want to add before we end this?
I think that's it. We've been going for quite a while.
Yeah. Well, folks, happy homesteading. God bless.
And grow where you're planted.